You see, there are places in this world where the veil between our world and the unseen is thin. Sometimes, something that doesn't belong slips through. Hidden off an old service road on Shasta's north slope, Black Hollow Campground is one of those places. Welcome to Whispers After Dark, where shadows talk and the night listens. But first we ask that you take a moment and like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Leave us a comment so YouTube will push our channel out there. And now let's get on with our story. Most campgrounds have rules, posted signs warning you not to leave the trail, not to approach wildlife, not to light fires out of season. But Black Hollow Campground warned about something else. It wasn't printed in the welcome packet or marked on the map. It was painted on an old sign at the entrance. Weathered, crooked, easy to miss if you weren't looking. The first sign read, "Do not feed the wildlife," the usual reminder to keep campers from tempting the animals. White block letters on fading wood, nailed to a post. Nothing unusual, at least not compared to any other campground Ranger Matt had worked before. But a little farther in, he found a different kind of warning. The second sign wasn't like the others. He noticed it on his second day at Black Hollow, nailed to a twisted pine just past the entrance. It was easy to miss. Crooked, half-faded, the wood warped with rotten time. Unlike the bright official warnings, this one looked older, personal. The letters were uneven, hand-painted in a rough white that had long since bled into the grain. The words were jagged, uneven, and almost swallowed by age. They read, "Do not speak to the shadows." The message was odd, unsettling. The paint had long since chipped, and something dark stained the edges of the wood, as though the sign itself had been feeding on the years. When Matt asked the site manager about it in passing, the old man froze mid-sentence. He'd been working Black Hollow longer than most campers had been alive, a local who spoke slow and carried the weight of stories he never quite finished telling. His weathered face tightened, eyes flicking toward the tree like it might overhear them. For a moment, he looked less like a ranger and more like a man who'd seen things he'd learned not to name. "Just leave it alone," he muttered, before turning away without another word. Matt had worked parks across 3 states. He'd seen backwoods shrines, strange carvings, even a camper once swearing a tree had tried to swallow his pack. But Black Hollow was different. The air here held its breath. The light never seemed to fall right in Black Hollow, and the paths would bend when you weren't watching, like they were making room for something to pass. Hikers sometimes complained of eyes on their backs. Though no bears, no cougars, nothing large enough to stalk an adult had ever been recorded here. People said the feeling of being watched wasn't an animal at all. It was older, patient. The hiking paths wound through the trees like veins, and Matt couldn't shake the sense that something ancient and waiting was following just out of sight. Then a child went missing. Her name was Emily, 6 years old, last seen by the restrooms near the visitor center. Her mother swore she had only looked away for a heartbeat. When Matt reviewed the surveillance footage, he expected something ordinary, a stranger, a vehicle, some detail that could be explained. What he saw instead froze him. At 2:46 p.m., Emily stood by the vending machine unwrapping a granola bar. At 2:47, she turned her head toward the tree line, toward empty space. Then, she smiled and lifted her hand in a small wave, as though answering someone who wasn't there. She stepped forward once, twice, a third time, and then she was gone. No one else in frame, no glitch in the feed. One moment, Emily stood in the sunlight. The next, there was only the forest, and an absence where a child had been. When Matt scrubbed the footage frame by frame, the vending machine's glass caught a single impossible reflection. Not Emily, but something tall and narrow standing where the path met the trees, its outline bent wrong by the light, as if it were facing her from a place the camera couldn't see. Then the frame advanced, and the glass showed only trees. The night after the search for Emily was finally called off, Matt stayed late. He sat on the porch of the ranger station, staring into the tree line, trying to make sense of what he'd seen. The air was still, heavy. No moon, no breeze, only a darkness that felt thicker than it should. Then it moved, not branches shifting, not the cautious stir of deer or raccoon. This was deliberate, something walking between the trees. The figure was little more than an outline, but wrong in all the ways that mattered. Taller than any man, hunched, its arms dangling too long, too still. Matt rose slowly, flashlight clenched tight in his hand, but he didn't turn it on. Some instinct told him the beam would invite it closer. The shape stopped just at the edge of the porch light, the darkness holding it like water around a stone. And then it raised a hand, not a wave, not a warning, just a slow, unnatural lift, as if it had been waiting for him to notice, acknowledging him, and in the next blink, it was gone. A week later, it happened again, this time a hiker. They found him 5 days later, huddled at the base of a cedar, eyes wide and unfocused, muttering over and over about watchers in the woods. He never made sense of it, never explained what he'd seen. Matt filed the report, demanded something be done. Close the trails, post a warning, anything. His supervisor only gave him a tired look, the kind of look worn thin by years of knowing. You think this hasn't happened before? 2 hikers and a kid went missing just last season. People wander off the trail. Sometimes we find them. He paused, voice low. Most of the time, we don't. Then the man pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk. From it, he slid a thick, faded file across to Matt, the edges soft with age, the paper yellowed and heavy, a file that looked handled too often, but never spoken about. That night, Matt opened the file. From the first page, it was all names without endings, maps, search grids, notes that circled back on themselves. Near the back sat a bundle labeled Missing Persons, 1962 to 1992. The older reports carried the same phrase in the margins, written by different hands over the years. Seen by the ridge, tall ones at timberline, watchers on the slope when the cloud sits. Tucked in the very end was a yellowed sheet from a child's notebook. A triangle of Mount Shasta under a thick cap of cloud. Along the tree line, tall, narrow shapes, too long for trees, jointless, faceless, drawn in heavy black crayon as if pressed into the paper. They didn't have feet so much as roots of shadow, sinking straight into the ground. In front of them stood a single stick figure, small and alone, turned up toward the shapes like it was listening. At the top, written in shaky pencil, "Don't talk to them. Don't speak to the shadows." Matt didn't sleep that night. The forest felt different the next day. No squirrels, no birds, not even wind, just silence, as if the trees were holding their breath, watching. A few days later, just before dusk, a complaint came in about something rummaging near the visitor center. Matt went to clear it before dark and log any wildlife activity. As he checked the dumpsters behind the building, he saw the boy, alone, maybe 5 years old, standing at the tree line, staring at something that wasn't there for anyone else. Matt called out. No response. The boy only tilted his head, listening. Matt sprinted across the clearing. When he reached him, the boy turned and whispered, "It wanted me to go play. I want my mommy." No one else was around. Matt lifted him and carried him into the ranger office, set him in a chair. Matt picked up the phone. The authorities said they were on their way. He coaxed the boy through a few bites of food, then tucked him onto the cot in the corner. The familiarity wouldn't let go. He pulled the file and flipped to the missing persons section. There it was, the photo, dated 5 years ago. Same face, same shirt, same shoes, not a day older. His stomach dropped. He checked the timestamp twice. He pressed the photo beside the boy's sleeping profile. Same scuff on the toe, same frayed cuff. The page slipped in his hands. For a long beat, all he could hear was the hum of the lights and his own pulse, loud and wrong. Matt didn't sleep. He turned the overheads off and sat by the window with the desk lamp low, eyes fixed on the tree line. Just before sunrise, something moved. They didn't walk, they floated. Tall and crooked, like coats left hanging too long, drifting where there was no wind. Their limbs bent wrong, puppets with broken strings. They weren't black, they were darker, swallowing the porch light as they crossed in front of the trees. No faces, no eyes, only slow tilting heads. And when they paused, the shadows of the pines leaned toward them, as if they belonged to them. The authorities arrived after midnight. The boy's parents came a few hours later, pale and shaking. He'd vanished during a family camping trip. Search teams, posters, vigils, and then nothing. Until now. He looks the same, his mother whispered. Exactly the same. The boy didn't speak, didn't blink. He just watched the woods through the car window as they drove away, his gaze fixed on the line of trees. Matt watched until the taillights were gone. He never saw the boy again. But sometimes, when the sun sets behind Black Hollow, he still hears something whispering just beyond the trees, waiting for someone else to answer back. In the weeks that followed, Matt went back through the file and saw the pattern stack up like rings in a stump. One disappearance every year. Different names, same season. He started marking the dates in red. He started listening for the quiet. And before the next summer, he painted a new sign himself and nailed it at the entrance, the letters thick and deliberate, as if weight alone could hold the dark back. Now the signs are still there, and sometimes just before nightfall, hikers hear whispers in the trees. Not words, just the cadence of a voice that isn't quite human. So if you ever find yourself walking alone in Black Hollow Campground, do not stray off trail. Do not linger by the trees. And whatever you do not speak to the shadows. People have whispered about Mount Shasta's watchers for as long as stories have been told in these hills. Tall, patient things that stand just beyond the firelight. Do you believe the stories? Tell me in the comments if you've had anything odd happen at a campground. Footsteps, whispers, shadows that didn't feel like yours. Thanks for watching Whispers After Dark. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Explore our playlists below for more original chills and gothic audiobooks. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and beware of the whispers after dark.